welcome to the very first AGS podcast. Hopefully, one of many. With me today is El Generico.
Hey, what's up? It's your boy, El Generico.
What's up, my friend? Game Buffet.
That me, I'm Brad, the buffiest.
And Insidious.
Yeah, I'm insidious. You don't know me.
And Blake.
Oh, okay. Oh, hey. Don't read my name.
I'm not even
No,
going to
that's-
try read that
what-
name.
Meant to say.
Man is Manistating.
You should have seen me trying to work out who it was before I joined. I was like, who the hell?
Yeah, I was the same for.
And then I saw it was a
it's like-
picture of Kanye, and it all just clicked. I just knew who it
Yes,
was.
exactly. It says that's okay. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's Blake. For anyone who's wondering, you guys haven't seen Blake before. He's our social media person who runs all our Twitter, Reddit, everything like that. So
He
this
does?
is the first time you've seen any of our content. Yeah.
So all of your nudes that you've sent us on Twitter all go through him. They all go
Yes.
directly to Blake.
He doesn't share them out either.
Hey,
No.
well, why am I not seeing these?
He filters them personally.
We're
and
gentlemen.
Of course, myself, Vindiction.
Just-
Okay,
Trademark.
so let's talk about what a shit year it's been last year.
It's been
Um,
rough.
It has been a rough year for games. Gosh, talk about the flops, the disappointments, the letdowns, the pushback on time. Like, how many games were supposed to come out this year that hadn't come out? Like, Anthem was scheduled for this year, I believe. Well, like last year, I should
Wasn't
say.
it?
I'm pretty sure it was. I'm pretty sure they pushed it back.
I thought it was all. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, can we get a fact check on that?
Okay. Let me check it out.
I think, honestly, yeah. Like, look, there was still definitely some good stuff that came out, but I think as a whole, what a mess of a year. Just
I think that's a good word for it. Messy. Like there was definitely some good parts, but a lot of delays, a lot of botched launches. Yeah.
I think Nintendo absolutely killed it this year. Nintendo was my
Oh,
company
yeah.
this year. Like,
yeah. I honestly, as someone who has have never really been a massive Nintendo fan since I was 10 years old. I really hated first part. Not hated is a strong word. I was never drawn to first party Nintendo titles. And this year I bought a Switch, and it has been something that I have enjoyed a surprising amount of, considering that it's Nintendo and that it's sort of designed around being portable, which I thought I would never see a use for. So yeah, I absolutely agree. Nintendo killed it this year, sales and games wise. They're doing amazing.
I think
You-
for Nintendo, you know, it was such a strong year. It's just strange to see. I'm maybe jumping the gun here a little bit, but the Game of the Year list was very strongly focused on PS4. But I feel Nintendo did knock it out of the park, more so than PlayStation did. I don't know. We'll get
Look,
into it later, I'm sure.
I think that kudos to Nintendo for opening up their platform a bit. Normally, they stick so heavily to their first party titles.
For sure.
That this time, and I don't know necessarily whether it's been a push by other developers to try and get their titles on the console because it's selling so well, but I think that it's made it more accessible for a lot of other people that would be drawn to those titles on other consoles that now have access to them on a Nintendo product. So I think that's always a plus, and I think it's helped sell consoles. So yeah, that's a highlight.
and there were
But-
definitely a few highlights. Like for sure, there were definitely some games that were amazing. You know, Spider-Man.
Yes.
I know you were a fan of Spider-Man, Blake.
you-
I mean, how could you not like Spider-Man?
Come on.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people were hyped for it. I think that watching the E3 reveal trailer, originally the chat was nothing but positive reactions to seeing it coming. I must admit that I didn't really see the appeal.
You get to be Spooderman.
Come on,
Yeah,
Mike. Remember last time you said you don't see the appeal in something?
look, what can I say? Eh, having played Arkham, having played a superhero game that is very much like close quarter fighting. Look, and I think my problem was I tried playing that game after Red Dead, so I think
Oh,
that
yeah. Forgot about Red
I think
Dead.
that yeah, it's like one of those weird ones that sort of just slips under the radar. It was such a massive release for this year that we and it took so much time to finish that you sort of think like, wow, how can I forget this even existed sometimes?
So, so I reckon what we should maybe do is maybe we just go down the list and everyone. Maybe we just name a win and a lose for the year. Might be the easiest way to
Yeah,
structure
well, I
it.
think even if we go through and see what the highlights are for each of us, and what we think was positives, 100%. What about you, Don? El Generico, what would you say would be your biggest highlights for last year?
Highlights. Yeah, wow. I mean, obviously, we've seen my video. I thought Celeste was fantastic. Definitely the most captivating game for me. I really adore that kind of 2D platformer feel. I've always been more of a fan of the 2D Marios versus the 3D Marios. I think I'm definitely drawn more to 2D style gaming. I got it on the Switch. I know it's available on PC and everything like that, but on the Switch is perfect. Perfect on the go game. Perfect in short bursts or long bursts. It was really, really good. Captivated me from start to finish.
Yeah, excellent. What about you, Brad? Game Buffet.
Well, are we doing our win for the year?
Yeah. What was
Hmm.
Yeah,
what was the
win
biggest?
highlight.
Yeah, what was the biggest highlight? What was the biggest draw you had from last year that sort of gave you a little bit of hope for the year to come? That sort of brightened the
Well,
rest of the dark year.
Well, the game that I probably played the most this year would be probably Pokemon. Let's Go Eevee.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I
probably
saw
like
you streaming that. Yeah.
yeah, that's like the only thing that I was like, hey, I have to come back and play that. Just because it's a remake of the original games, so it really speaks to our age group.
Yeah,
You
and I
know.
think it was good that they sort of they made it more accessible to current sort of players, having the app sort of all incorporated with it. I myself, I really enjoyed it myself.
And like
Having
the shiny hunting game is just crazy now. Like it is the easiest it's ever been to get
Mhm.
shinies and complete your Pokedex and stuff. So yeah, it's just been great.
It's still driving people. Like, I haven't seen the Twitch numbers recently, but I know people still grinding out shinies. Like, how much really Pokemon Endgame never existed to me, but now because it's so easy to seek out those 151 Pokemon and get shiny versions of them, like I could see Endgame actually being interesting for perhaps once in Pokemon. Like I've always got a fair bit of time out of Pokemon games before, but this definitely seems to be something that you can continue coming back to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm kind of interested to see if they go further with that and do like a Gold and Silver remake. I don't know.
Yeah. And as someone who never really had the chance to play any of the old Pokemon games, I'm glad that they have revisited them, especially on the Switch that I purchased. It's a perfect time for me to go back and sort of see these games that a lot of people grew up with and shaped their early childhood gaming experience.
That's the thing, though. Personally, I don't like the new Pokemon Go system of capturing Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
really just enjoy lowering their health, capturing them properly. It felt like I actually, instead of just throwing something at an animal, I'm actually properly engaging it.
Yeah, and look, they are confirmed that they are working on a proper Pokemon RPG, which we'll no doubt see more of this year. Might not come out this year, but there is going to be more of that. Thankfully, I like that they're sort of doing both, appeasing to both crowds. But yeah, back to you, Dan. What would you say was your highlight, like for yourself anyway?
Look, my highlight for 2018, 7 Days to Die, released a fucking update. Finally.
Wow, that's
Yeah, I
a
know.
whole year just for that.
Yeah, the whole year just for that. 2 years, actually. I don't think they updated in 2017.
Really?
Really early
So,
2017.
every time I see that game, they're always making progress, but I swear that I must check on a yearly basis then.
Yeah,
But,
it's they release updates really intermittently over a long period of time, but they are massive updates. Like this
Mhm.
last update was 7.5, nearly 8 gigs.
That's pretty good. I'm still waiting for them to do a visual overhaul. That game does not look amazing,
Yeah,
but I'm glad that they haven't dropped it like a lot of early access titles, which is
yeah, no, definitely not. I think the aesthetics and the visualization is what they're working on next. I
Mhm.
read through the update files of the last one, and it was a lot of physics and how everything moves and collides.
okay. Very good. What about you, Blake? What was your highlight for the year?
I mean, Spider-Man, obviously.
In before Spider-Man.
Yep. Um, so we expecting it to be as good as, because I know you've played through the entire thing. You've been wanting, if not finish the DLCs.
I
Did you
mean,
expect
DLC was alright.
did you expect to enjoy it as much as you did though? Like, I know that you're not one of the biggest sort of people out there that would jump on every game that came out. I know you played Red Dead. I know you played a lot of this God of War and stuff like that.
Yeah, just like the main titles and stuff. I wasn't really anticipating it as much, but then I got it when it first came out and just didn't stop playing it pretty much until I finished it.
Yeah.
And then basically, like with the movies and stuff, it's been like a big year for Spider-Man, I feel. So
Yeah, I'd agree.
yeah,
yeah.
just playing for the game was really fun.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. I think, yeah, Spider-Man had a surprise comeback. I think everyone sort of wrote him off as, especially with Marvel and Adventures and stuff like that.
Was Infinity War this year? Was that like
Yep.
March?
Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, he was like the biggest meme to come from. Like,
Yeah.
he had a huge revival this year. How crazy is that?
Yeah, which, yeah, it's good. A lot of people love the game, so at least you got that out of this year, which is good. I think for myself, the biggest highlight for me would be the sort of backstep on microtransactions, like just a lot of games still including them, but not being as sort of intrusive as they were the year before.
It's not taking up half your screen.
Yeah, and it's not as sort of game dependent stuff. It's definitely moved more towards your cosmetics. I think there's definitely been a pushback towards certain design decisions. I think Battlefield's a good example of it. Um, I enjoy playing that game, but I think it's one of the big disappointments for this year in the way that they sort of marketed that game in a way that has caused a lot of backlash. And people have they've, instead of being angry and still buying it, they've actually, stood up and said, no, I'm not going to buy this game because I'm upset with your practices.
I mean, people were saying that about Battlefront when it first came out, the new
Yeah.
Star Wars Battlefront. But people went and they still flocked and bought it.
Yeah, and you look at a lot of systems, and it looks like by design it was going to be very similar to Battlefront. I think that after the pushback from Battlefront 2, they realized that they had to make some changes, and I think that goes across the board. I think Ubisoft as well with the latest Assassin's Creed. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and there was no point in that game where I felt like purchasing resources or purchasing weapons and stuff to advance. I never felt bottlenecked. I never felt like I was forced to make decisions. I out-leveled the enemies I was fighting without having to spend a cent. So I never felt weak because I hadn't spent money. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest highlight for me is companies realizing that people aren't going to deal with their crap anymore. I think that people are actually making a stand and wanting some better quality content for their money, especially if they're expecting people to play them for a longer time.
For sure.
So yeah.
You know what I think is interesting, really quickly? Out of
Hmm.
the 5 people here that are talking about highlights, the most hyped game of all, Red Dead Redemption 2, didn't really get a mention as anyone's highlight. And I think that's really interesting. Not that I've seen backlash over the last few months, but obviously everyone's played that start to finish and loved it. And I've seen a lot of not negativity, but a lot of oh well, it was good,
It was
but
good.
we've
It was.
found things now. I don't know. That's
I feel like Red Dead is a different kind of beast in the way that I see that as more of an experience that I went through as opposed to a game. Like I felt like it was a guided journey through a very long story, a good story, but it felt more like a movie, like something I had watched and moved on,
Yeah, I
as
was gonna say.
opposed to as opposed to something that I went in that world and went around 100%ing everything and exploring and collecting, and it felt like a movie more than it did a game to
A
me.
movie in which you control the rhythm.
Yes, you
Yeah.
control the pace, you control like you said,
So
So
I've
that
got
was just
I've
an
got
interesting
some
thought. Sorry. Anyway,
I've got
Go
some
on.
mentions here, some games that I personally completely forgot came out this year.
Yeah.
First of all, Assassin's Creed Odyssey,
Mm-hmm.
Black Ops 4.
Yeah.
oh man, was
Monster Hunter World was this year.
wow.
Far
January,
Cry
I think.
5.
Yes,
Dragon
Far
Ball
Cry
Z
5.
Fighter.
Yeah.
God of War. I completely forgot about God of War. That was such a great game.
That's good.
Spyro remaster.
I forgot
we
Monster Hunter came out this year. I thought it was like December last year.
yeah, same. I was working at that other company at that point, but no, I was working at that company this year. We
FA
Happy
Gym.
Few also came out this year.
Yeah.
Obviously Celeste, as Donnie
Mhm.
mentioned. The Crew 2, Detroit Become Human, Kingdom Come Deliverance.
Oh, Kingdom Come!
Was that
I
this
forgot
year?
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really feel like
Um,
that was 2017.
More
No, it
more
was-
importantly, Fitness Boxing 2018, available
Wow.
on PS4 and Xbox.
Give me a sec. I'm gonna go order it now.
Oh, excellent. Destiny 2 stuff doesn't really count. It's just expansions.
Oh, I
and-
really liked the Forsaken. I thought that was
Oh, it was
actually
dope.
quite fun.
Oh, Donnie,
but-
disappointed. Nino Kuni 2.
Oh man,
That
was
was
my
a disappointment for me.
I thought Donnie would be all over that. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh yeah,
Ah,
that
I-
was this year.
again, I totally forgot.
There's a lot of good games this year. Like honestly, surprisingly so. So that was the good. Now let's discuss the bad. Unfortunately, unfortunately, I feel like a lot more bad this past year than good. which-
Fallout 76.
Well, yeah, that's true. Let's go through the list. Donnie,
Yes.
what was your negative for last year, or negatives, I
Feel
should
like-
say?
Hold on,
Uh,
before Donnie says anything, what do we do if everyone just says Fallout 76?
Oh
Like-
well, I think that I
It sends a
wouldn't
very
blame
strong
anyone.
message.
all right.
Okay, I'm not going for that. So, well, maybe I am. A rushed game is bad forever, where a delayed game is, will be good when it comes out finally. I still think rushed games and delayed games both are the negatives of the year. We had so many rush games come out this year. I don't know, maybe Fallout 76 suffered from rushing. I'm not too sure. Rushed, we were just talking about Spyro before. That game planned to come out, I think it was like September. It got pushed back to November. It was meant to have all 3 games on the disc. It only has 1 game on the disc. You have to download the rest because it wasn't ready in time for printing.
You're kidding. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
wow.
100% true. Just a lot of, I don't want to say cutting corners or anything like that. Like, I mean, I'm presenting 2 sides of an argument and saying they're both negatives here, but with, that
It's-
I don't want to be given a date and then it not be adhered to, I suppose. I don't know. Just leave me
Yeah.
in, like Cyberpunk. Who knows when that's coming out? Just
Oh,
keep
look,
it in
when
the
it's
oven.
ready.
Let it bake.
Yeah.
It's
They
Yeah.
they
It's
won't
not
rush that.
it's not necessarily a bad thing that you're presenting 2 bad sides to what is essentially a 20-sided die.
True.
Sort of.
I mean, it's no Star Citizen, so that's fine.
That's
That's
yeah, good
fine.
point.
Hey, look, when it's ready, it's ready. Don't rush that either. What about you, Brad? what would you say? was
Oh,
your
look, there's a little
negative?
game called Fallout 76. What a travesty. That is heartbreaking a game, because like
That's
it's what I wanted from Fallout. And in retrospect, I should have known it would be terrible because Elder Scrolls Online is terrible.
well, yeah.
Like,
Yeah. But I mean, that said, you could have at least given it a little bit of faith, because obviously it wasn't ZeniMax that made it. It was the OG Fallout team.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking Todd Howard. We're talking.
Mhm.
I mean,
could that be some of the problem? Like, is it an OG team trying to adapt to modern day?
look, there's no doubt that they're trying to cash in on something that they think is popular. I think they see Destiny, they see these games as a service, and say, how can we jump on that using the existing sort of tech we have? And I just don't think it's there. I think that they overestimated fans' appeal for
Yeah.
them as a company, and they are blind to the utter garbage quality of that engine right
I
now.
think,
Like,
like-
it is prehistoric.
I think everyone's reason for not liking it differs, right? My problem with it is that because it looks like a Fallout game, it mostly plays like a Fallout game. There are some obvious differences that had to be changed for online, but it doesn't feel like a Fallout game. There's no charm because there's no NPCs, no dialogue with other characters. It lacks that feeling of wanting to be in a Fallout game.
I would say it's the most accurate wasteland simulator I've ever played. The feeling of being in a barren, desolate wasteland with nothing but things that want to kill you is
Yeah.
sort of, that is the experience, unfortunately.
Yeah, honestly, that sounds so negative, but that was always kind of my issue with Fallout games. It's like I feel like this stuff shouldn't be here at this. So I mean, the way you put that, it is the most realistic, and maybe that's how I thought it would be. But now seeing it that way, it's definitely not a good game.
I think
Not
it just
good
comes down
gameplay
to.
choice.
I think it comes down to what you said too, Donnie. I think it was just cutting corners. There's so much asset flipping in that. There's so much. The use of robots is so they don't have to animate. They don't have to do a lot of work that it felt like a cash grab.
Do you remember
at
that
the end
picture
of the
that I
day.
sent you of the ghouls T-posing?
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
a good thing to find.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that would be the only negative you reckon, Brad?
Oh, there's lots of negatives,
Just-
but that's mine.
There's one more, but that's the
biggest one. Yeah.
I
What about
think-
you?
Oh, sorry. I think that the scariest part about that is Bethesda's got this filthy, filthy name right now, and I'm
Yeah.
really, really keen for Elder Scrolls 6, like every single other person in the world. And now I'm scared that
I'm
no one cares anymore.
well. I'm sorry to break your dreams, but it's being made on the exact same engine that was made on. So
And is that the Skyrim engine? Is that a 2011 engine?
that is the engine. Yes. What about you, Dan?
Look, I'd say I have a pretty positive outlook when it comes to games. You know, if there's something negative that pops up, I just go, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to buy it. It's not my problem. I'll play games I like to play.
Mm-hmm.
Was there?
Touching back on the falling,
Mm.
what?
I was gonna say, was there a game you did buy that you expected to be good though?
Not really. Like,
I expect no games to be good this year. Not at all.
oh no, it's sort of no. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, I bought games that I thought I would enjoy, and I did end up enjoying. Like, there wasn't any game that I bought and played, and I was like, oh, this is shit.
Perhaps you don't invest yourself in the hype as much as anyone else.
That's the thing. Like, ever since I was younger, it's sort of like I don't really increase my expectations or something. I just like, yeah, cool, it's coming. That'll be good.
So
Touching
you're-
on
Oh, you
Hmm?
go. You go.
no. I'm going on to a different point here.
Oh, I was going to say your negative was 7 Days to Die. I don't actually know the game. I honestly have never played it. Didn't have as many updates as you would like.
Sorry, I missed that last bit.
It didn't have as many updates as you like. 7 days to die.
Yeah, that is probably my biggest negative. But I'm going on to a different point back with Fallout
Mhm.
76. One thing that, even though they're fundamentally different from the Elder Scrolls Online, is they could have looked back on the roadmap of that. And as they did with the Fallout and Elder Scrolls series originally, because they're fundamentally different games, but they feel really similar in the way they play, not just because of the engine, but of, as Brad said, the story which was behind them.
Mm-hmm.
The Elder Scrolls Online, it has story to it, albeit in some points not quite so strong.
At least it had NPCs. Like,
Exactly. Even just adding any elements of story, just looking back on the roadmap of what they did for the Elder Scrolls Online, would be able to just give them a little hint on how to make the game better overall as an online game.
Yeah. Look, I agree with you there.
I think Mike said it best when we just like it was a rush game, bit of a money grab, perhaps. Time will tell.
Yeah. I think that it's just something to keep their pockets full, to keep people. They thought to keep their fans happy. I think they misjudged that absolutely horrifically. And while they work on their 2 new games, yeah, sadly, I feel like it was just a bus stop on a very long bus ride to actually getting something decent. Yeah. So, what about you, Blake? What was your biggest disappointment for the year?
I can't really say that I have a biggest disappointment just because I'm not as ingrained in it as you guys are. Like, I don't play as many games.
Spider-Man?
I mean, did you play the DLC for Spider-Man? It's pretty trash.
I played that with the silver lining on.
It's like, it's not very good. But like, the only really games I played like when they first came out, like Red Dead and Spider-Man and stuff. And most of the other games I played were from the recommendation of like you guys that were good. So can't really say I had a biggest disappointment.
Oh, well, that's good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having no disappointment. I think that, it just means you haven't fallen for the traps that a lot of companies set. There's nothing wrong with that. I think for myself, the biggest disappointment honestly, the biggest disappointment would have to be 2 different things. I think the first one would be the disconnect between companies these days and consumers. I think I look at, which ties into my second, which is World of Warcraft. I think that
I was thinking of
BFA,
Warcraft. Yeah.
BFA, you can see they definitely wanted to try and hit the reset button with this, going back to the roots of sort of Horde vs Alliance, reigniting sort of that old nostalgia feel. But God, do they just not know what fans want? I
don't think the fans know what they want.
Look, they don't. But when you're a company that has statistics, that has all this information, that has people getting paid salaries to figure this out, you'd think that they would do a better job. I think that there's a lot of that going around. I think, again, Battlefield, the marketing campaign for that was just a train wreck. And you've seen the results. I think a lot of companies are no longer gamers, not necessarily the workers, but the people that are making those big decisions are looking at sort of business instead of consumer, appreciation for the product. I look at sort of the shutdowns and stuff that have happened, like Telltale, really is upsetting. I think that, look, at the end of the day, the game's quality stayed the same from the very first one they put out to the last one, which is a shame. They didn't ever really try and improve, but the stories they crafted, for the most part, were good.
Really mad about The Wolf Among Us too.
Yeah, exactly. There's and I think that comes from the fact that they didn't want to invest that extra money to improve the quality of their products to the point where their consumers stopped buying them. It feels like the fact that all these companies are now bringing out launches. Like, I'm looking at my second monitor. I've got Steam, Oculus, Uplay, Epic, Galaxy, Origin, you name it, Blizzard. You've got all these launches, GOG. It just, Streamlabs have their own. It's getting to a point where, companies are more focused on themselves, and which is, look, they're a company, they're supposed to be, but there has to be a balance. And I think that's my biggest disappointment. Is it feels like this year especially, there's been such a big disregard for what consumers want. Um, and I think it's hurt them. I think that, at least sales wise, Blizzard's stock has dropped 50% after BFA. You know, the fact that Battlefield, um, physical sales down 50% on Battlefield 1, and Battlefield 1 was one of their worst selling titles. Yeah, it's. I think the pushback, I think this coming year should hopefully be a golden year for gaming. I think that companies have finally realized that they have to change, or, well, at the end of the day, they're going to make less money if they don't. So I'd probably say that would be my biggest negative for the year.
Yeah,
That's fair.
Battle for Azeroth was awful.
Yeah,
Awful.
look, I enjoyed the experience getting to max level, but at the end of the day, when you scrape away the skins, the locations, it felt like I was playing Legion again. And the stuff that they had added, like Warfronts and Island Expeditions, were so utterly dull that they weren't enough to keep me from overlooking the fact that I was doing invasions again, that I was doing my rep farm. They need to do something to change it up. What? I don't know. I don't get paid the same amount of money as they do to figure it out, but something needs to change. I hope they realize that it is Activision now. And I mean, look at Call of Duty. They gutted that game to turn it into a battle royale game, and thankfully for them, it was a success. So I'm glad that they can have some success doing that. But I just hope that they.
Oh,
Sorry. What's
sorry. I'm having a connection issue, I think. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So yeah, I think BFA, big disappointment. So let's move off the negative. I think we should move on to our game of the year. Oh, I think we already know what Donnie's is, but
Didn't we do that?
we did highlights, but we didn't cover what we would say out of the entire year is
Favorite game.
our favorite game. Like,
Okay.
what is the one? Like, there was definitely highlights, there was definitely positives, there was definitely good stuff that happened throughout the year. But what is the one game that if you could only play for the coming year? Okay, man, that's probably not a good idea because some of them are short games, but you know what I mean. What if you could give a company an award for a game? Who would you give it to, Donnie?
As much as I would, you know my answer already. It's going to be Celeste, but if I had to split the award just for conversation's sake, just to keep the conversation going, it'd either be Celeste or God of War. God of War, fantastic.
Mhm.
I mean, you could argue it's just the more of the same kind of storytelling. You just progress through the game kind of thing. I don't know. I feel like they mix it up enough from the previous trilogy. The story was the most captivating story that I can tell from this year, that I can recall at least. And I'm super excited for the sequels. So, as fun as Celeste was, Celeste as a game was fun to me. God of War makes me want to go back for the story, and
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know.
Looking forward to what's coming.
Yeah, exactly.
It excites you. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Brad?
Well, again, it's going to be a Nintendo game. It's going to be
Pokemon?
Smash. No, Super Smash.
Smash. Oh, okay.
Or like, if I'm going to be playing that a lot this year because I'm really looking forward, like, to the DLC characters, and it's a lot of fun. I haven't played it as much as I played Pokemon, but when I find myself playing it, I do sit down for quite a few hours at a time and fight noobs online. It's quite good. It's really good. If you haven't played it, play Smash. It's really good.
How is I haven't been online yet. How is online? Have they patched it at all? I heard it with the launch was
flawlessly.
okay.
I have never had an
okay.
issue with it.
Fair call.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a good one. What about you, Dan? What would you
Well, now that I finally realized / remember that it was released this last year, Monster Hunter World.
say? Okay.
All the way. I can. Hmm?
Would you say that it when you played it then to now, it's held its charm?
PC was released this year.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, no, 100%. Absolutely. Like, I could go back to it whenever I want, start from where I was, even if I don't remember shit beforehand, and still become just immediately engrossed in it. Like,
Mhm.
I don't do it all the time. Like, I haven't played it in a while. Last time I played it was, what do we got here? 29th of November last year. But
Yeah.
when I do play it, I will just sit there just for hours and play it.
Yep. And that's always a sign of a good game is when you can sort of go to it as your fallback. What about you, Blake? Can I take a guess?
I mean, I was Spider-Man or Red Dead. I mean,
Yeah.
pretty basic
Yeah.
answers, but
If you had to choose one,
um,
what would you say
I'll
you
say
had the
Red.
most
I'll say Red Dead,
fun?
just because.
Yeah.
I mean,
Look, I think
how
it's a
can you
popular
not?
game. Like, yeah, I look honestly, when I was playing that game, I had a great time, and I literally took days off work, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I don't think there's a negative opinion in that.
Did you play the first one at all, Blake?
I played it years ago, but I don't really remember it, to be honest.
Because I was gonna
But
ask if the main character, like Arthur Morgan, was he a big like? Did you like? Was he a drive? Did you want to see what happened to that character, or did you just enjoy more like the exploring, hunting, mission-based sort of stuff?
definitely the world and the worlds that they built. But yeah, definitely towards the end, and like I don't want to spoil anything, but like as the character progresses and his story, I definitely wanted to know what happened and try and like mold his story the way I wanted it to be.
Hmm.
I'm totally interested to see the difference between someone that has finished Red Dead 1 and someone that hasn't finished Red Dead 1, and they, you know, how they both think of the game. I wonder if that's a something that maybe not determined that
Yeah.
you have to go through, but I don't know.
There's,
That's
uh,
an
there's
interesting thought.
definitely a lot of people looking for Red Dead One. After Red Dead Two, I think
Yeah,
that
yeah.
there's a lot of people that had never heard of Red Dead. And it's good. You know, it's a good game if people want to play more.
Which
They
one
want to
was
go
better,
back.
guys? Which one was better?
I mean,
Look,
objectively, number 2 was a better game, gameplay wise, but honestly, I prefer number 1.
I I would say yeah, I'd say two, just because I definitely got my money's worth. I I think it's one of those situations, rose tinted spectacles. Hindsight's
Yeah,
not
true.
always 2020. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed two. I think game of the year wise though for myself would have to go to
Fallout
bef-
76.
no Before the Storm. Uh,
Before
life,
this.
life is strange. Before the Storm.
Oh.
I would, yeah.
Right. Yep. Yep. Forgot about that one.
That was a huge surprise. Um, Playing the original Life is Strange, I enjoyed, and it was an emotional roller coaster, but you still felt like your choices didn't really feel like they carried any weight. Like the result was very much like pick an ending. You don't really get to play that ending out, but in your own head canon, that is your ending. Um, but when it came to this, developed by a different company, um, you knew the end. The end was already preset.
Mm.
You are given a character that the terrible sort of circumstances that surround them, the path that they're forced to take, and you lock yourself into a way of playing that character as you want their personality to be, knowing where they're going to be, knowing interacting with people, knowing what's going to happen, um, watching the connection form between them, and knowing just how upsetting it's going to be when it ends was a journey that I will not lie brought me to some serious tears that I have not. No game has made me that emotional ever. Like I think that the end of that game, then going and watching that same scene from the first game and everything sort of connecting was like I was sobbing. That shit was beautiful. Yeah. I, removing the whole sort of time travel, that whole gimmicky sort of puzzle solving, it just felt like I could get lost in playing this character
It just
without having
became
to.
it just became a Telltale game, didn't it?
No,
Essentially.
because see, the problem with those games is you're always trying to metagame it. You're always trying to go in and say, I need to make the decision that will make this character survive. I need to make this decision that will make the best results for my camp. I need to make like you're always going to choose the option you think is the best, not the option that you necessarily want. Knowing, especially with this, knowing that how it ends, knowing that any choices you make really don't affect that outcome, means you can play the character exactly how you want without metagaming it. You get to actually create a character and not try and win the game. You know what I mean? Um, I
Does
think
that railroading not upset you at all? Like, I mean,
look,
Mass Effect 3 got very bad
if
reviews
but
for
end of the
something like
day,
that.
end of the day, Mass Effect 3 was an abomination that tried to
Whoa.
be
Whoa.
it.
Whoa.
Look,
Yeah.
it tried to live up to the expectations that 2 set. 2 was my favorite game of all time. The ending of that was absolutely incredible, to the point where you could kill off every single character except Joker. 3 was a cash grab that they said, okay, we have to add all these decisions. How the hell do we tie up loose ends? They didn't railroad you into an ending. They just didn't know how to end it properly. There was no forethought of when they designed that game of like Mass Effect 1, we are going to end on the Citadel choosing 3 colors. Now let's craft the story to that location. It was an afterthought that came, I believe, after Mass Effect 2's incredible success. They said, cha-ching, how do we make more of this?
I think. See, I don't think that we're getting off track here, but I don't think that at all with 3. I think that with Andromeda, they're like, we had this amazing series that impacted gaming. How do we replicate that and still make money?
Look, Andromeda was their defibrillator on something they killed, and they're just
Yeah.
trying to bring it back to life. And unfortunately, they failed. And it is unfortunate, like I said, Mass Effect 2 was I say was purely because so much time has passed. I forget how much I enjoyed it, but it was definitely, for the longest time I can remember, my favorite game of all time. So I obviously carry some sort of anger towards their attempt at just destroying that legacy.
Sorry about that
okay.
total tangent.
Yeah.
No,
Can we talk about this game that came out in 2010?
Okay. We're done talking about the past. Let's talk about the future. Let's discuss news. So, I think probably the biggest thing that's come to light since we have recorded this was the departure of Bungie from their partnership with Activision.
That was a thing.
Yes,
Literally today.
talking about companies losing touch with their customers. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why Bungie has decided to part ways and publish their own game as an indie studio. It's funny to think of Bungie as an indie studio, but yeah, they've cancelled their contract.
Who classifies them as an indie studio? Is that what they're classified as?
They themselves now, yeah.
Yeah,
they would be,
self-published. Yeah, self-published game studios are apparently
independent,
classified as
yeah.
indie. Yeah, independent.
Indie.
Yeah.
But they haven't released a pixel art based game and half
Yeah,
completed it on
yeah.
Steam.
Have you seen Destiny 3 yet?
Oh, true. Yeah, true.
Good point.
I'm very
Um,
curious to see if that's a thing. If
Look,
Activision is letting people go. I'm curious to see how this works with Blizzard. If that's a thing, I don't know how closely they're tied together now. But yeah, that's interesting.
honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I have downloaded Destiny 2 again. I hadn't played that since I hit max level, but the thought of Bungie saying, you know what, we want to make the game we want to make, not the game that Activision wants us to make, I think that makes me go, well, now I am excited to see what their pure, corrupted vision is for the game. All right, like I want to see what they want to make, not what they had to make. So it's exciting. I'm all for companies if they can support themselves to do so. I think CD Projekt Red is a amazing example of success when it comes to being a company that just takes the reins of its own product, says, look, we're not going to rush it. It's going to be ready when it's ready. We're risking a lot by doing it this way, but it has paid off for them. And I think that I'm truly hoping for Bungie that it does work out the same for them. I hope that they can make something that is truly incredible. Yeah.
You know what? Good old Bungie. Give it a go. Give it a go, Bungie.
Yeah.
Give it a red hot.
Give it a. You've got nothing holding you back from making what you truly want to make now.
I
So,
wish they said that from Destiny 1, but regardless.
oh look, I think they signed a pretty hefty contract with Activision. I think that there's definitely been some infighting between the two, between them. But yeah,
I'm just
Canadian
hanging out for that Halo ODST 2. That's all I'm hanging out for. I can't wait for that.
I did not think that was that bad, honestly.
I thought it was okay. I thought it was
in-
mildly
in-
adequate.
In other news, Division 2 not coming to Steam. So,
Oh, well,
Well,
I
it's
mean-
just going to a launcher. It's
but that's again like what we discussed earlier, the fact that these companies are now forcing you. At least before they were giving the option like, yes, you can own it on this platform and it will still direct you to our launcher, but now it seems like they're just forcing people. And it will only be releasing on the Epic store.
Really, not
Yeah.
Uplay.
Oh, and Uplay, obviously.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay, there we go.
But-
That'd be the launch.
But that's what I mean. Like it's very much. It feels like it's less. It's more like Epic gave us a shit ton of money, so we're going to.
So wait.
kind of.
now we have to launch it through Epic, and then it launches through the Ubisoft.
You can buy it directly through Ubisoft, which I know I will do, but you know that Epic was like, hey, we'll give you some money. We'll give you a nice big discount on your purchasing if you put it on us and not Steam. And so you may have Division 1 and all these Ubisoft games on Steam, but now you'll be forced to launch that from directly Uplay or Epic, which is not ideal, but you know, what
That's the
can you do?
future.
Yeah.
It's not
In
gonna
other news,
change.
Smash was Amazon's best-selling game. So
Yes.
I'm not surprised.
yeah,
Yeah, not at all.
That's always good.
I think if they didn't announce Joker as the first DLC character, it wouldn't have quite the same impact. But I think so much hype for that has just got it buzzing around the internet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
Yep.
if anyone's seen the supposed DLC leak. I don't want to spoil anything just in case anyone's away, but it looks like a lot of third-party stuff, if it's true. So see if that's a real thing.
There's also rumored God of War DLC. I don't know how much information's out on that, but that is another thing that has come
Really?
to
Because
light.
I thought
Yeah.
that they
I
weren't
s-
doing DLC and they was going to focus on the
That's-
trilogy.
I saw
that was yeah.
Corey Barlog came out the other day and said they were thinking about doing DLC, but it got too big, so they're just going to be like pushing that to God of War 2 or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
So yeah, PlayStation 4 sold over 91 million consoles. That's,
Superior console.
That is a pretty damn big seller. Like that's kind of crazy.
This generation was clearly won by PlayStation. Like,
100%.
100%. Like I think that they did a very good job. Again, not backtracking too much, but I think it comes very much down to knowing what consumers want. And I think they did the best job, at least until they had to compete with Nintendo. I think that they outdid Microsoft in that regard so well.
I'm curious
Yeah.
to see how if Xbox can come back this year at all with some of their exclusives coming out. If we get Halo, if we get Gears, see if we get any bounce back there. Honestly, I think it's a little bit too far gone, but curious.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, other than that, I can't really think of any other big news. I mean, the Switch was the fastest selling console this generation, so that is something to. It has its own award in that regard, at least. So
It's
there's-
like already doubled the Wii U, like without trying. So
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
in other words, Fortnite is still selling like hotcakes.
oh man,
Selling is
Fortnite.
massive.
we nearly went a whole episode without mentioning it.
Oh, it's happening. I'm flossing. Oh no.
In some less popular news, in fact, loses 80% of its players already.
Sorry, what does?
Artifact, Steam's attempt at a card game.
Valve
never
made a Dota 2 themed card game to combat Hearthstone and was hyped up. They said they put $1 million into like tournaments and stuff like that, and they've got about 1,000 players right now. It is
Sucks.
just it's dead, unfortunately.
So what you're saying is there's a good chance I could be a pro right now.
You could win $1 million.
Oh wow, I could go to
Yep.
the international.
Yeah, basically just give out money now at this rate just to play. That's not true, but don't hold me to that one. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up, I think, the biggest sort of, at least recent news
Yeah.
leading into 2019.
Without
Um,
jumping into too deep into news, because obviously, I'm sure another episode will go into hype for
Yeah.
2019.
We'll
and, don't
definitely-
wanna
definitely,
jump too far into that.
Definitely be looking forward into 2019. I think next time we do this, for sure. There's a lot of stuff that's coming and that we know of, and going to be even more stuff that we don't know of. Speaking of which, I guess we'll go through and just sort of see what everyone's intending to put out between now and then. Not necessarily between now and then, but in the foreseeable future. What about you, Donnie? What have you got in the works for the channel?
Yeah, working on my second one of my videos. I would love to keep it a secret, but I can't stop gushing about this game. It's going to be about Hollow Knight. Very similar feel to Celeste, so I'm definitely going to dedicate a whole episode to Hollow Knight. And then I've got some little things in the works for my episodes 2, 3 onwards. So yeah, that should be coming out fairly soon.
Excellent. What about you, Brad? Anything in the pipeline?
I'm just gonna keep adding to my Pokemon card collection. Gotta collect them all.
You gotta do it. You got, that's it. That's it. That's how they make their money.
I've got some the new set coming out, which is Team Battles. Some pretty sick looking cards, but that's all I've got at the moment. Just more
Excellent.
Pokemans.
Excellent. What about you, Dan? What's in the pipeline for you?
Well, first of all, go fuck yourself. Second of all, I am putting together 2 separate videos at the moment. First one is just PUBG gameplay. You know, it's not very as popular as Fortnite, but I like it. So fuck
Yeah.
you, Fortnite people.
I'd be curious to see how it's going.
It's
Like I haven't been there, so
Terribly.
look, just because your
It can't be
computer
as bad
shut
as
down.
Artifact.
I like PUBG. I played it recently and it's fun, but man, it's just
His computer shut down and his character kept on running and drowned.
it is still PUBG. Like that's all I'm saying. It's got updates, but it's still PUBG.
The new maps are pretty cool. There's some weapons that I think are actually map exclusive as well, so that's pretty
yeah.
cool. And then the second one is just Rainbow Six
Excellent. Can't
for
wait.
the moment.
Now, obviously, Blake, you're not going to be putting out any content, but
Well,
you
maybe
will
you will.
be.
So
Well,
like, how
I
you?
can't say never, but I'm sure
Never
you'll
say
be.
never about anything.
Coming
If you
soon,
wanna-
Blake's playthrough of Spider-Man on PS4.
I'll just do my own voices for all the characters and retell the story in a different way.
Oh,
Excellent.
that would
I
actually be
can't-
amazing.
I can't wait to see Kanye as every character in that game.
Oh, you should do a
Um,
playthrough of Kanye Quest. You should
that a
do
thing?
that. That's a thing. Someone made an RPG, make a game called Kanye Quest. The only game where you get to play is Kanye, Biggie Smalls, and Tupac all at once.
Sounds like Kevin.
Fantastic.
But no, you'll
And
be able
Mark,
to catch.
What have you
you'll
got
be-
coming, Mark?
Well, hey, relax. You'll be able to catch Blake on the socials. You'll be able to, if you want to have a good old chat with him, you'll find him on there.
What is
as
the
for-
That's
social?
fine.
Please
Socials?
retweet.
You've got Twitter, Aussie Game Station. You've got the Facebook group, which you're more than welcome to join. And we've also got some harassment on Reddit, posting our crap all over the place to annoy everyone.
I'm having flashbacks, man. That was.
But
The
yeah,
Reddit
you
posts
also,
have been described as AIDS.
yes, exactly. But you can always get in contact with Blake and see how he's doing on Twitter. As for me, I'm going to be working on some VR stuff. Just probably going through buying a couple of VR games, jumping on, having a go for the first time, just playing through a little bit, sort of maybe do some highlights depending on what it is. Other than that, I want to sort of try and maybe experiment with some talk showy style things about some subjects. But yeah, really, just see what pops up. I'd love to do a mukbang at some point. Let us know if you'd love to see a mukbang in the buffet room.
For most people who don't know what a mukbang is, we eat a bunch of food.
Yes.
And you watch.
That's it, isn't it?
And you
Yes.
adore.
Okay.
Can we
Okay.
call it the Buff Cave? Because we're all buff dudes. And game buffet.
I like it's just the buffet room.
The buffet, oh.
We
Speak for
buffet
yourself.
on the mukbang. But yeah, that's pretty much rounds it off, guys. I think unless anyone's got any sort of final little tidbits they'd like to shoot out there.
I've got something I'd like to say.
Mm-hmm.
If you're subscribing and then unsubscribing, please stop. We've been going like, you know, to higher numbers than back down. No, I'm only kidding. That's obviously YouTube. But definitely please subscribe just so you can stay up to date
Yeah.
with what we're
I
doing.
Those
think
of you who do it, we have your address.
Oh,
we don't.
oh God.
No, we don't.
We really don't.
We have collected your information when you subscribe.
As legal as that is.
But no,
I do have something to add briefly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's still a thing or not. A giveaway.
Yes. If you can get in before the end of the month, we are giving away a G502 Logitech gaming mouse, I believe. 502 could be a different number, but it's one of the highest end Logitech mice you can get.
What's
and
the
it has
cutoff?
all the cutoff is 30th is the giveaway. That's
Of
when it
January
is
2019.
2019.
Just so someone isn't watching this 2 years from now, it's like, oh, I'm gonna win a mouse.
Look, if you want to enter, I'd say the odds are 100% against you, but by all means,
Don't say that. Who's gonna go? Oh, I better subscribe.
Well,
They're 99.9% against me.
hey, that said, if you are watching this 2 years in the future, God
Or
bless
10
you for
years.
still being alive. But there will probably be other giveaways between now and then. So if not a mouse, it could be something else. And as always, I think we'd like to thank you for if you've stuck it out this long. We absolutely hope you enjoyed our attempt at a podcast. I think that we hope to get a lot better at this and create some sort of structure that is enjoyable for you guys. So if anyone has any suggestions, please leave them, good or bad. We would love to entertain you as best as possible.
The next
But yeah.
podcast will be entirely based around the Devil May Cry series.
No, no. I'd like to actually keep my head in.
New
But
Dante
as al-
versus old Dante. Who will win?
Oh God.
Battle of the Hair.
Battle of the
Yep.
Hair.
Dante in my mind only has black hair. I'm just gonna leave that. I'm gonna leave that so that people don't mug me in the street. But yeah, if you want to see more of this, if you want to hear, don't forget to subscribe. Leave us a like, hit that bell notification, and you will no doubt see us in the future. Goodbye, guys.
Much love.
Boy.